From his Central Texas Command Center, deep behind enemy lines, the information war continues. It's Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
But Bob, specifically, I remember you saying it would go up like it did a few years ago and then back down. And you even said in a few months, I see it going down to, 66, and then I see it going up to 8,000, and then I see it going back down again. And you're even doing it month to month accurately. When will there be the big plunge, or will they just start hyperinflating in a year and the stock market will reflect that? Maybe the stock market will be at, not 15,000, but 100,000. It's just it won't be worth as much, or what's going to happen?
Well, the market's going to go down, and we're not going to get a hyper market. It just isn't going to happen. We'll get hyperinflation as soon as the money that was lent to the banks by the Fed, that was then lent back and stored with the Fed, is put into action. Now, right now, they're not using that money. They keep it on the balance sheet to ostensibly make themselves strong and receive about 1% interest for virtually doing nothing. And it's sort of like a wash sale. And so sooner or later, banks are going to have to use that money to keep the economy going. How far away is that? We don't know yet. Probably next year. But in the meantime, we're still going to have inflation because M3, which they don't publish anymore, is expanding at about 18% again. And in other countries, it's even higher. China's over 25%. And that money and credit that's being expanded by many major governments is going to cause ongoing inflation. And the money that is being created by the Fed and is being created through borrowing by the fiscal part of our government, which is our government looking for money to pay interest more than anything else, and run the government because revenues are falling as well. And that is going to continue to push inflation higher again. And then once they take this money that banks have out of sterilization, as it's called, then the thing will just go berserk. I can't put a timing on that yet, but it's going to happen. I'll see probably a month or two ahead when they're going to begin it. And but they haven't begun it as yet.
Well,
and quite frankly, I thought they would have.
Well, we're a year into this, and you said it would take 2 or 3 years, and most of the other people we talk to who are of your caliber of researcher are saying something similar. So what, we're a year and a half out probably? Or you're saying it could come sooner?
The chances are a year and a half out to 2 years, but it could come sooner because of that untoward event I explained earlier. There are things that happen that nobody can control.
Okay, one more point, like China or somebody pulling out, and then we're going to calls. I want your take on this. It was in the New York Times. They even had a graph showing how China had been, increasing its purchase of U.S. bonds, that back our debt, for those that don't know. Now they've suddenly reversed, and it was a huge drop. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm sure you do. And it showed other countries are now, it appears the move from the dollar, they'd gone to baskets and started buying a little bit of other stuff, but now China and others are buying gold, silver, copper. They're hoarding it all. And other countries, it appears we're now really starting to see the flight away from the dollar, coinciding with this talk about a new world reserve currency with more G20 meetings coming up.
All of that is true. And actually, it's a flight from all currencies. Because in Europe, you have people buying gold coins and bars, and they're not dealing in dollars, they're dealing in euros. So you're seeing a flight to quality from all currencies, small at this time, but it'll grow larger. And that'll happen in an evolutionary process because all of the major countries, G20 and more, are making the same mistakes that we are, grasping at straws because the politicians don't want to be around when the bottom falls out.
So the Indian government, the Chinese government, the Russian government, the Japanese government, they're moving into precious metals across the board, including industrial metals like copper. You can just Google governments buying copper, and it's a run on copper. There's a run to commodities, real commodities, and you're right, there's a flight from currencies globally. And so I guess they've got to kill the global currencies to bring in the real world currency.
Well, and I don't think it's going to be SDRs because they've been unsuccessful before. They're backed by nothing. And I think that what they'll do is go for a basket of currencies and say that we're going to have gold backing when in fact they won't. And that's the way I think they're going to get away with trying to make their world currency. But because of programs like this, people are aware that this is what they're up to. And they're not going to let that happen in their country, whether it's Colombia or Bolivia or Tashkent or wherever it is.
That's right. A global
they're not
government.
Let them do it.
A global government setting the currency rates. Let's go to the calls here. Thanks for holding. Paul in Florida, you're on the air.
Alex.
Hi.
Yeah, I've been in InfoWars since 1981. My punk band from Florida sang about everything that's happening right now. But I'm hard to keep on subject. I really appreciate your work. I just wanted to talk about what you mentioned early in the show, which is torture. You know, the Delta Force, they're like federal agents. And they can dress however they like. They don't wear ranking badges, but everyone...
Yeah, they're under the National Security Council. That's Cheney's hit team. It's only Bush. No, it's been around for decades. It's still going on, and it's not even really part of the military. Yes.
Yeah, and I think it was them who moved into the World Trade Center to wire all the explosives. And I have an Army friend who was at Fort Detrick, Maryland, and he told me about how they choose their members. They look for sick... He thought they looked for sick, demented people who were... who would confirm as yes men and who get off on being plugged into the chain of command, you know, as if they were the top gun. So I think that's the mentality.
Yeah, I heard Limbaugh about 10 years ago, and then I confirmed it with the Delta Force and other groups. There's other secret groups after that. They give them, after they've gone through all these months of training and the psychological warfare and all the tests, and all these guys have washed out, you know, from the Navy SEALs and Marine Force Recon and the Green Berets. You know, it's this joint deal. They then put them in a little shack with Machiavelli's The Prince. And they ask them to write an essay on it, just like they do high-level Masons. And if they say, oh, I don't agree with end justifies the means and doing all these evil things to, you know, for the greater good in the end, they go, oh, you don't pass, but we want you for something else. But if you say, oh, yes, I think doing evil for good is good, they say, that's it, you graduate. And they also, and then they do other psychological testing, but go ahead.
Yeah, and so what my idea is that what they're going to do is when they need a chain of command that's going to listen, they're going to put these guys in the chain of command just under the New World Order structure, and under them they're going to put a lot of the people they've recruited from the gangs, and then under them the foot soldiers, so that they'll try to keep what looks like a chain of command that's listening. And so there's a polarization. The good people like us were coming together, and they're coming together under power, just like in the cities, people in gangs come together for power. And this only safe place will be in the woods. Now there's the erase, and then there's the rewrite. We know this whole system might fall apart and break down. It's what we do after that, right on the moment, to keep civil society together, protect our children, protect the family unit. And I worked extensively on what could happen and possibly there, and even had visions and visits from angelic forces, you know, while in Hermitage for a year, prayer on this. But anyway, back on the thing.
Well, listen, I'm going to let you go. That's interesting. You ought to write an article about that, sir, but you sound like an interesting person. You know, going back to Bob Chapman, that's the big goal of the elite. I mean, they're totally ruthless. Once you commit all this evil, the next evil, you know, it's no big deal. Once you've, I mean, it's like I've said, I won't do anything immoral because I know that if I'm going to be evil, I might as well just go all the way. And I know where that leads. I don't want to do it. But the government's problem is they're always trying to find people that'll do what they're told and to test them. Then they don't trust each other. That's why they had all the biological, chemical, radiological testing, killing innocent troops and children and foster kids. It's all declassified, was to create cadres of scientists who were mentally ill and believed end justifies the means, to then take those guys, and it's those scientists they created. That's actually at the highest level of the New World Order. It's banking families and then scientists that they found agree with them. Bob, has that been what your research found?
Absolutely, and they even have them categorized, and what's the best place for this person to be. As long as the person is pliable they can use them almost anywhere that their talents fit. And that's what these people do.
Amazing. Bob, I want to come back and finish up with the economy and then let you go. Then I'll continue with calls and a big news blitz. I mean, I've never seen such attacks on the First Amendment. And I've kind of gotten conditioned seeing these build up the last year where I'm not even screaming bloody murder like I should. And because they just do it, creeping death. We'll be right back with Bob Chapman, internationalforecaster.com. I'm Alex Jones, prisonplanet.tv. We are live.